Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Kim Medlin? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case. I'll move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Kim Medlin grew up in the state of Michigan. She developed an affinity for horses and decided she wanted to start her own horse farm. She moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, hoping to fulfill her horse farm dreams. She met a disc jockey named Bridger Medlin. They became romantically involved. He proposed to her 8 months later. The couple married on September 17, 1994. They moved to Monroe, North Carolina, which is about 40 minutes southeast of Charlotte. They purchased farmland and built a horse farm, but money was always a problem. Bridger continued to work as a disc jockey, and Kim worked as a cocktail waitress at a men's club in Charlotte. On March 15, 1997, Kim was driving home on Old Charlotte Highway from her job at the men's club. Two men in a vehicle started harassing her. They were tailgating her and sounding their horn. Kim was frightened. She saw a police vehicle in a parking lot and pulled up to it. She told the police about the two men who were harassing her. The police found the men and stopped them. The men said that Kim was the one who was harassing them. The police accepted this answer and let them go. Kim was still not feeling too great about the situation. She asked the officers if they would keep an eye out for her. She gave them details about her schedule, like she was off work at 2 a.m., She told them what days she worked and what route she took home. The police agreed to look out for her. They disseminated this information to all of the officers who would be working overnight in that area. One of those officers was a 23-year-old named Josh Griffin. He took a particular interest in 26-year-old Kim Medlin. He mentioned to fellow officers that he would like to meet her. Josh was known to have conducted fraudulent traffic stops of young women in order to meet them. Amazingly, none of his fellow officers reported any of these discussions or his behavior to their supervisors. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On March 28, 1997, just a few weeks after the incident with the road rage, Bridger was working as a DJ at a prom in South Carolina, and Kim was working her usual job at the men's club. Josh Griffin was working security at a mall until 10 p.m. After he was done work, he drove his police cruiser to the parking lot of a closed restaurant, which was along Kim's route home from the men's club. A motorist approached Josh and asked him if he could call a tow truck. Josh used his personal phone to call a tow truck at 2:01 a.m., now on March 29. At 2 a.m., Kim left work as usual. Around this time, Bridger was driving home from South Carolina. He called Kim at about 2:15 a.m. and spoke with her briefly. She wanted him to check on one of their horses who had recently had surgery. After Bridger arrived home, he checked on the horse and called Kim back. After this, Bridger went to sleep. Kim drove past Josh Griffin on her way home. He pulled up behind her and initiated an illegal traffic stop. Kim had not committed any offense. Based on the evidence that would later be gathered in this case, and a confession from Josh Griffin, which would come later, here's what happened at this point. Josh took Kim's driver's license and asked her to sit in the front seat of his police cruiser. He made some type of sexual advance. Kim resisted, and Josh realized that he was past the point of no return. She was going to say something if he let her go. He handcuffed her wrists in front of her body and drove about 2 miles away to an empty cul-de-sac. At this point, he may have been intending to kill her, or he may have been thinking he could still talk his way out of the situation. Kim realized that this wasn't going anywhere good. She jumped out of the vehicle while it was still moving and ran through the woods. Josh caught up with her. He beat her, stomped her with his feet, and choked her with his flashlight. She died from suffocation. He removed the handcuffs and returned to his vehicle. Later, he threw his shoes away in a Walmart dumpster, and he cut up Kim's driver's license and flushed it down a toilet. At 3:45 a.m., the police were notified about a suspicious vehicle on Old Charlotte Highway. When the police arrived, they found Kim's red Jeep. The engine was running and no one was around. Her cell phone and purse were in the vehicle, but her driver's license was missing. The police launched a search for Kim. Her body was found 2 miles away. Naturally, the police suspected that Bridger could be involved. He was eliminated as a suspect based on surveillance video and cell phone records from the call between him and his wife on the morning she disappeared. The police were also interested in the road rage participants. They both had solid alibis for the time when Kim went missing. Eventually, the police discovered a shoe print on Kim's sweatshirt. It was made by a shoe consistent with the kind police officers wear. This particular print was from a size 8.5 shoe. They managed to narrow down the type of shoe that made the print to one specific model. There was only one store that sold that model of shoe in Monroe, and there was only one customer for that product. It was the Monroe Police Department. On the police force, which comprised about 150 officers, only 3 people had size 8.5 shoes. Josh Griffin was one of them. The 2 other officers had alibis. Josh claimed that after working security at the mall on the evening of March 28, he wasn't tired, so he continued to work up in that area. Evidently, this is permitted in that police department as long as the officer received permission from a supervisor. Josh claimed that he did contact a supervisor, but then said he may have forgotten to do that. Josh eventually admitted that he was in that restaurant parking lot around the time Kim drove by. He said that he was reading a law book. On May 30, 1997, Josh was charged with first-degree murder and first-degree kidnapping. On February 27, 1998, he was convicted of both charges and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. 3 years later, he confessed to the murder, but he was not honest about everything. He claimed that he owed drug dealers money for steroids. They wanted Josh to kidnap Kim and hand her over to them as payment for his debt. These drug dealers were somehow magically present during the murder. They threatened Josh with a gun and ordered him to kill Kim. So at first they wanted her alive, but now they were ordering Josh to kill her. Josh described one of the drug dealers as average-looking and the other as sort of ordinary-looking. Average and ordinary-looking drug dealers are always the worst kind. It's curious that Josh would not be a little bit more creative. Considering his story was fiction, he could have at least made the drug dealers into interesting characters. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few items that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1, the jury was allowed to consider second-degree murder in this case, but they decided to convict Josh of first-degree murder. I think they made the right decision. I don't think that Josh Griffin pulled Kim over with the intent of killing her, but I think he had enough time to think about it during the incident to qualify as premeditation. Josh probably intended to make the advance on Kim, and the situation grew out of control. He was not willing to accept any penalty for his behavior, therefore he decided to kill her. Josh could have simply let Kim go after she rejected his advance. He would have been in some trouble, but nowhere near life in prison. Item number 2. Josh may not have planned the murder long in advance, but he did make a methodical attempt to conceal involvement. He told the authorities that his police-issued shoes had been damaged by battery acid during an accident investigation. It was probably an average battery and an ordinary accident. Josh also cleaned his patrol car. It was spotless when the police searched it. Normally, it was the dirtiest vehicle in the fleet. Item number 3. Several officers who worked with Josh Griffin were aware of his statements about Kim Medlin and other women. Josh made it clear that he used his powers as a police officer to conduct illegal traffic stops of women, and he made it clear that he wanted to illegally stop Kim Medlin. After Josh was arrested, the officers were disciplined for not saying anything, but they should have been fired. It seems as though they bought into this gang mentality that is often evident in police departments. They were willing to cover for their colleague, even though they were fully aware his behavior was reckless and illegal. Item number 4 is my case conceptualization. This is just a theory, my opinion. Josh Griffin has characteristics of psychopathy and narcissism. He was a high sensation seeker, which led him to become a police officer. He was not supervised properly. The Monroe Police Department just automatically trusted him. He liked the action-packed lifestyle of an officer, but was bored when he was off duty. Therefore, he worked longer than his shift, even when he wasn't getting paid. He was permitted to use his police vehicle off-duty, which made this even easier. Apparently, this was the policy of that police department. The line between his identity as a man and his job as a police officer became blurred. In his mind, he was the law. He could do whatever he wanted. At the same time, Josh was highly attracted to young women. His social awkwardness and creepiness combined with an intoxication on his authority. He used his position as a police officer to meet women. His advances were clumsy, unsophisticated, and illegal, but he managed to get away with it for some time. When he confronted Kim, she would not give in. She held him accountable, which in his mind was unacceptable. No one was going to make him lose his job, and no one was going to deny him what he wanted. In his way of thinking, that prospect threatened his very existence. He murdered Kim to keep her quiet. Now moving to my final thoughts. This case is a reminder that there is no reason to trust a police officer over an average citizen. Police officers are trained to lie to the public, to be dominant in situations where dominance is not required, and to use force. They are encouraged to view each other as allies and members of the public as the enemy. They often become paranoid and suspicious of the public. This case occurred before body cameras were popular, but it is a reminder of why they are so important. There is nothing special about an agent of the state that makes them automatically trustworthy. Most police officers are generally honest, but this case exemplifies how one bad officer can do an unacceptable amount of damage. Those are my thoughts on the case of Kim Medlin. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comments section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be more intriguing than something average or ordinary. Thanks for watching.